Hello, Sagittarius. If you're hearing these words right now, life may have just touched you in a very quiet way. Not loudly, not through collapse or chaos, but just enough for you to realize something important. You can no longer live smaller than who you truly are. This is not a crisis. This is a fated moment. The moment destiny stops waiting. So stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you may begin to understand why your life is already starting to shift from the inside out. There are moments in a Sagittarius life that do not arrive with noise. No major event, no knock on the door, no clear milestone to remember. They arrive quietly, like a morning when you wake up and sense that the sky feels different today. Not necessarily brighter, just seen through a different pair of eyes. Sagittarius has traveled many long roads believing one thing, that you must be strong, that you must understand, that you must be generous, that you must keep moving forward, even when there were questions inside you that never found answers. You are used to opening paths for others, carrying light, carrying hope, carrying dreams that were never fully named. Yet rarely did you stop to ask yourself a simple question: what am I walking for? Who am I living this life for? And then one day, that question no longer stays quiet. It does not hurt. It does not frighten you. It simply waits, patient like a small flame in a long night. You cannot turn away from it. You cannot stay busy enough to forget it. You begin to feel that something within you is waking up, slowly, deeply, honestly. Sagittarius is the sign of distant horizons, and because of that, you often overlook the quiet signals within your own heart. You are used to looking far ahead, forgetting that sometimes the most important truth is standing very close, right inside your chest. The past months may have taught you something difficult to accept, that freedom does not mean running forever, that expansion does not mean forcing yourself to endure, and that some limits are not meant to be broken. They exist to show you that you have stayed too long in a space that no longer fits who you are becoming. You may have wondered why the things that once excited you now feel dull. Why familiar relationships suddenly carry an unspoken distance. Why you are still moving forward, yet no longer feel full. This is not losing direction. This is inner maturity. It is the moment your soul refuses to live on old answers. There is a very personal moment for Sagittarius, when you realize you no longer need to explain your path to anyone, not because you have grown cold, but because you have learned to respect your inner voice. You begin to feel that your truth does not need proof. It only needs to be lived. And when you allow yourself to live honestly, even gently, even slowly, the rhythm of the world around you begins to shift. A new kind of quiet settles in, not empty silence, but a quiet with depth. A place where you no longer react too quickly, no longer chase expectations that were never yours. Your choices become more intentional, not because you fear mistakes, but because you understand the value of your energy. Each decision now feels less like a step forward and more like a promise to yourself that you will not return to versions of life that once drained you. Results may not be visible yet. There may be nothing you can clearly call success. But if you listen closely, you will feel something essential. You are standing in the right place. The road ahead, though still unclear, feels strangely familiar, as if you have always known it, and only now are quiet enough to recognize it. Sagittarius was never meant to live in a hurry. You were born to live with meaning, and that meaning is not measured by how far you go, but by how honest you remain with the light inside you. When you begin living from that place, what belongs to you will find its way. Answers will not rush in. They will reveal themselves slowly, just enough to carry you forward with a new kind of trust, steadier, deeper, and no longer borrowed from anyone else. And as you take a deep breath in this moment, you may feel it too. You are no longer standing at the old starting point. A new current has begun to move, gentle, yet irreversible. And right here, as everything settles, another inner door begins to open, bringing larger questions and greater light, enough to illuminate the road ahead for Sagittarius. There is a very distinct moment that Sagittarius recognizes, even when no one says anything, even when there are no clear signs from the outside. It happens while you are still living your familiar life, doing the same things, seeing the same people, walking the same paths. Yet inside, a different feeling begins to rise, not exhaustion, not anxiety, not fear, but a quiet pull, deep, persistent. As if something within you is whispering, this cannot continue the same way anymore. That feeling is not loud. It does not push you into panic. It simply stands there, steady, patient, making it impossible to turn away. Sagittarius is used to motion, used to moving forward, used to momentum. And because of that, you may not realize that staying still for too long is exactly what causes your soul to react. When that reaction arrives, it does not pressure you, yet it does not allow delay. You may begin to notice that the things which once felt safe are now showing small cracks. Old compromises no longer bring peace. Roles you once carried naturally start to feel heavy. Relationships that once felt familiar suddenly feel distant, not because others changed, but because you are no longer standing at the same inner starting point. Even work, direction, plans that once seemed reasonable begin to lose their sense of certainty. What matters most is this. None of it happens dramatically. No one forces you to leave. No crisis pushes you to act. Yet you know, very clearly, that if you stay exactly where you are, you will have to sacrifice a part of your truth. And for Sagittarius, that is something that cannot last. You can endure hardship, but you cannot live long in dishonesty with your inner self. You may have once believed that destiny arrives through a major event at a clearly marked moment. But now you begin to understand something deeper. Destiny does not knock. It simply stops stepping back. It stands still. And that stillness creates a sense of no return, no detours, no more postponing. Only one honest question remains, one you must face, even if you are not ready to answer it yet. Am I living as my true self or not? Sagittarius carries natural optimism, faith in the future, trust that everything will work out. Yet that same faith sometimes causes you to stretch situations long after it is time to change. This moment does not arrive to break you. It arrives to remove a shell that has already completed its purpose. Old structures begin to shake, not because you are weak, but because you have grown stronger, wider, and no longer fit inside them. You may feel slightly disoriented, but this is not being lost. This is the moment just before a new vision forms, when the familiar is no longer enough, and the new has not yet found its name. In this in-between space, Sagittarius is invited to do something difficult, to trust the inner feeling, even without visible proof, to trust that current instability is not a sign of failure, but a sign of deeper movement. You may also notice that you no longer want to convince anyone, no longer want to explain why you feel this way, why change is necessary, why the old path no longer works. You begin to understand that not everyone needs to understand your journey. And surprisingly, this realization no longer feels lonely. Instead, it brings a strange relief, as if you have finally set down an invisible weight you have been carrying for a very long time. Within this quiet, something else is happening. You begin to hear your own voice more clearly, not the loud voice of desire or ambition, but a deeper voice, steadier, speaking of alignment, of meaning, of where you truly want to place your energy in the years ahead. As that voice becomes clearer, everything that no longer belongs begins to fall away, without force, without struggle. You do not need to rush. You only need not to turn away from this feeling. Stay with the truth as it slowly reveals itself. Because right now, as you listen, as you feel, a new current is quietly forming. Not loud, but unwavering. And from that steadiness, a different choice within you begins to ripen, ready to be recognized, not by logic, but by a clarity that rises from deep within. Quietly, Sagittarius learned how to endure very early in life, not because you were weak, but because you understood the value of keeping the peace. You learned how to yield. You learned when to stay silent. You learned when to brace yourself so that nothing would fall apart. You believed that if you were wide enough, understanding enough, generous enough, then relationships would hold, paths would remain open, life would keep flowing. And for a long time, that belief seemed true. But somewhere very deep inside you, there has always been a part that stayed awake. A part that is not loud, not demanding, yet never asleep. That part knows something very clearly. Every time you accept less than you deserve, every time you step back so someone else can move forward, every time you choose harmony over truth, you are shrinking yourself. No one forces you to do this. You choose it. And because you choose it, you cannot keep pretending that you don't feel the cost. Sagittarius carries a large heart. You are used to giving without counting. You are used to bringing hope to others, lighting dark places, opening roads for those who are lost. Yet rarely do you stop to ask yourself where your own light is being placed. Is it being valued or merely used? At first, that difference is subtle, but over time, it becomes a quiet ache, like a sigh you never speak out loud. Eventually, you can no longer ignore it, not because it suddenly grows louder, but because you have grown mature enough to face it directly. You realize that you are living smaller than who you truly are, not in what you do on the outside, but in how much power you allow others to define your worth. You still smile, you still move forward, you still play your role well. Yet inside, something begins to close, like a door that no longer wishes to open again. A fated moment does not arrive as a shock. It arrives as calm clarity. One day, you understand something very simply. You can no longer shrink yourself just to make others comfortable. Not because you want conflict, not because you want to win, but because you can no longer tolerate the feeling of betraying yourself. That feeling is not explosive, but it is persistent, and it makes returning to the old way of living impossible without hurting yourself. Your light has never been the problem. You were born to expand, to see far, to live honestly, to live largely. You were never meant to fit inside narrow containers. Your expansion is not a threat to anyone. It only becomes an issue when those around you are not ready to grow with you. For a long time, you chose to make yourself smaller, hoping life would be easier for everyone. But light is not meant to be compressed. When held back too long, it does not disappear. It turns inward and begins to burn you from the inside. That is when you feel tired without knowing why. That is when you keep moving forward but no longer feel inspired. That is when you realize you are living a life that works for others, but no longer works for you. The greatest test for Sagittarius has never been how far you can go or how much risk you can take. The real test is this: whether you dare to stop shrinking yourself, to stand still in your own light, even if that light feels too bright for some, to hold your truth, even if it unsettles old balances, to accept that not everyone can walk beside the truest version of you. This change does not need to be loud. You do not need announcements. You do not need proof. You only need to stop making yourself smaller in familiar moments, to listen to the tightening in your chest when you are about to say yes, while everything inside you is saying no, to respect that signal, even when it is quiet, even when it feels fragile. And when you begin to do this, even once, even in a single small decision, something else begins to move, not immediately, but unmistakably real. As if the space around you is watching, adjusting, preparing for a new state, one where you no longer have to bend to fit. A place where you can stand upright, breathe deeply, and feel that living in alignment with who you truly are is no longer a choice. It has become something that can no longer be postponed. Silence slowly becomes a familiar companion for Sagittarius during this time. Not a heavy silence, but a pause deep enough for you to begin seeing the world around you through a different lens. When you stop shrinking yourself, the space around you responds, very gently, very slowly, yet undeniably. You begin to notice that some conversations suddenly feel shorter, Some eyes no longer seek you out the way they once did. And at the same time, certain people who once felt distant or unlikely begin to move closer, effortlessly, naturally. Sagittarius has always known how to connect widely. You open your heart easily. You make others feel at ease. You become an emotional anchor without even trying. But when you begin living in alignment with your truth, those connections no longer hold their old shape. Not because you have become cold, but because you are no longer softening yourself to fit everyone. And that subtle shift asks the world around you to recalibrate. At first, this may feel unsteady. Long-standing relationships can suddenly feel unfamiliar. There is no major conflict, no dramatic goodbye, just a quiet sense that the rhythm no longer matches. People who were used to you always listening, always yielding, always being available, may feel uneasy when you begin keeping a space for yourself. Not because you have become selfish, but because you have stopped sacrificing yourself for the sake of familiarity. And then, something important becomes clear. Not everyone who leaves takes pain with them. Some departures are light, like a passing breeze. They leave a brief emptiness, and then relief. They are not bad people. They are simply no longer aligned with who you are becoming. They were comfortable with a smaller version of you, a more predictable version, an easier to adjust version. When that version no longer exists, the connection naturally dissolves. Alongside those openings, something else begins to emerge. You start to recognize true connection. People who do not require you to speak softly. People who are not threatened when you talk about larger dreams, broader visions, or deep internal change. They do not try to hold you inside an old image. They see you, and they accept you. Their presence offers a different kind of safety. Not because they are always there, but because you do not have to perform when you are with them. Sagittarius begins to understand that closeness is not measured by time. It is measured by how fully you are allowed to be yourself. You can know someone for years and still weigh every word, and you can meet someone recently and feel your chest finally exhale. This is not betrayal of the past. It is honesty with the present. As you mature, your standards for closeness evolve. You no longer choose who stays based on history, but on how alive you feel in their presence. This process of clearing is not cruel. It is truthful. It does not take away what belongs to you. It returns the space once occupied by connections that no longer nourished you. Within that space, you begin to hear your own breathing again. You no longer maintain meetings out of obligation. You no longer reply to messages that drain more than they give. Each connection now carries clearer meaning, even if they are fewer in number. True freedom does not come from having no one beside you. It comes from not having to trade yourself to stay beside someone. Sagittarius is learning this lesson deeply. You understand that your light does not need to be liked by everyone. It only needs to be respected. And once you accept that, you stop trying to please those who cannot, or will not, see who you truly are. Within this new quiet, another feeling begins to form. Clarity. You know who you want beside you. You know what you no longer wish to carry. Choices become simpler, not because life is easier, but because you have stopped complicating it. And within that simplicity, another door begins to open, not loudly, not urgently, but with a clear invitation. An invitation into new forms of connection, not only with others, but with value, with exchange, with how you give and how you receive from life itself. All of it aligning to a new standard, broader, fairer, and far more worthy of the Sagittarius who is now awakening. After the quiet shifts in your relationships, Sagittarius begins to sense another wave moving in. Not loud, not dramatic, but undeniably real. This wave reaches straight into the places you once called responsibility, stability, the foundation of your future, money, work, your path forward. What you once approached with logic alone is now felt through a deeper measure, the measure of alignment and personal value. Sagittarius has never chased money for its own sake. For you, money is tied to freedom, to choice, to the feeling that you are moving in the right direction. Yet for a long time, you may have accepted situations that were not fully equal. Not because you didn't know your worth, but because you believed things would eventually balance themselves. You trusted that if you worked hard enough, gave enough, remained patient enough, the rest would come later. Now, that belief begins to change shape, not into hardness, but into clarity. You start to see clearly the places that drained you while you kept calling them fine, work that took more energy than it ever returned as inspiration, agreements that sounded reasonable, yet quietly made you feel smaller inside, promises about the future that never quite balanced the present. You no longer see money as just a number, you see it as feedback, a reflection of how your value is being recognized. When you realize that certain spaces are underestimating what you bring, the feeling no longer passes quickly. It becomes a clear signal, a reminder that your energy does not belong in places too narrow to hold it. Sagittarius begins to understand something essential. Burnout does not come from doing too much. It comes from doing the right work in the wrong place. You can give endlessly when you feel yourself expanding, learning, moving closer to who you are meant to become. But exhaustion arrives quickly when you are constantly proving your worth in spaces that were never prepared to fully acknowledge it. And then, the moment of saying no appears, not as a harsh refusal. Sometimes, it's simply a pause, a moment where you don't rush to agree, a moment where you allow yourself to think before accepting an offer, a moment where you listen to the heaviness in your chest instead of dismissing it. These moments are small, yet each one resets a standard. This standard is not blind ambition. It is fairness. Fairness between what you give and what you receive. Fairness between the time you invest and the sense of aliveness your work returns to you. You begin to understand that saying no to what is beneath you is not losing opportunity. It is creating space for what truly fits to appear. And space, when opened with intention, always knows how to respond. Sagittarius may be surprised to notice that after these refusals, new doors begin to reveal themselves, not always immediately, but clearly enough to confirm that you were right not to keep compromising. A new invitation, a new direction, a different way of working. Not necessarily easier, but truer. And the greatest difference of all is that you no longer have to shrink yourself to fit into it. You also begin to soften your relationship with money itself. The vague sense of lack fades. The urge to race and prove disappears. In its place comes quiet respect for the value you carry. You understand now, money is a result, not the only goal. When your energy is placed correctly, money finds its own path to you, steadier, more natural, more sustainable. Within this shift, a very Sagittarius feeling returns. Freedom. But this time, not the freedom of escape, the freedom of choice. You know you are allowed to choose spaces worthy of your energy. You know you no longer need to cling to paths that make you smaller. And as you stand firmly in this knowing, everything around you begins to sharpen. Somewhere within this clarity, a gentle calling can be felt. Not the pressure to succeed, but an invitation towards something broader. A direction where value, exchange, and meaning begin to merge. As if life itself is inviting you to take one more step into a space where you not only live in truth, but finally begin receiving what is truly proportional, naturally, quietly, and fully worthy of the journey Sagittarius has already walked. Quietly, a different kind of strength begins to take shape within Sagittarius. Not the strength of sudden force, not loud determination or bold declarations, but the strength of calm. A state where you no longer need to prove who you are, no longer need to explain why you chose this path, no longer search for validation outside yourself. You stand still within your own center, and that stillness carries a deep, grounded stability. Sagittarius begins to notice that the fears which once held you in place are slowly losing their weight. The fear of losing what feels familiar, the fear of disappointing someone, the fear of stepping outside structures that once made you feel safe. Looking back now, you can see that many of those spaces became too small a long time ago. They no longer had room for you to breathe, to dream, to grow. And when you stop trying to hold on to what no longer fits, a very real sense of relief moves through you. You no longer live to meet other people's expectations. You stop reshaping yourself to match images others once placed upon you. This does not make you distant or cold. It makes you more honest. When you no longer have to brace yourself, your inner truth is allowed to exist fully. You speak less, but every word is clear. You choose more carefully, and every choice carries deep inner agreement. This clarity does not come from logic. It comes from lived experience. From the times you tried living smaller and felt the cost. From the moments you accepted less and watched your energy fade. From the crossroads where you finally chose not to betray yourself again. Each experience settles quietly, forming a solid foundation for the state you are now stepping into. Sagittarius begins to see life move differently. Not because everything suddenly becomes easier, but because you are no longer moving against your own current. Decisions feel lighter, crossroads become clearer. What no longer fits leaves without struggle. What belongs to you finds its way without force. You understand now, when you stand in the right place, the world does not need to be pushed to realign. A fated moment in the end is not a dramatic date on a calendar. It is a quiet, personal instant when you look directly at yourself and know one thing with certainty. From here on, I will no longer live smaller than who I am. Not as a dramatic vow, but as an obvious truth. A truth that needs no approval, because you are the first to believe it. In that moment, Sagittarius feels a rare harmony between the inner self and the outer world. You no longer divide yourself into multiple roles, no longer run between conflicting desires. You return to the simplicity of living in alignment, and that simplicity opens a new depth, a place where you do not merely exist, you are present in every decision, every relationship, every step forward. When Sagittarius dares to expand in alignment with true nature, life no longer has a reason to hold you back, not because you fight against it, but because you stop holding yourself back. More aligned opportunities appear. The right people begin to walk beside you. Values that once felt blurred become clear again. You no longer chase freedom, because freedom has become an inner state. And within that state, there is a deep sense of peace. As if you have traveled a long, winding road, only to return to yourself, wiser, deeper, no longer questioning the value of the light you carry. You understand that this journey is not finished. There are still steps ahead, still unknowns, still questions waiting to unfold. But unlike before, the unknown no longer frightens you, because now you know who you are walking with. You are walking with yourself. And once that companionship is established, the road ahead, wide or narrow, bright or dim, becomes a place you can move through with deep trust. Trust that from here on, every movement will no longer be escape or compromise, but the natural expansion of a Sagittarius who chose themselves and allowed life to shift direction in the most honest way possible.